I'm okay showing my kid that I fell down on my journey and I learned something and I picked myself back up, because sometimes that's the message they need to see, is that we're not always accurate, right? Like, I have failed with companies. I have closed companies that did not work, but I learned from it.
Dadhood, I be repping Dadhood. Let's go.
All right, what's up, Jeff Fenster? Welcome to the show, my man. Thank you so much for jumping on, dude.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor and pleasure. I love your mission. I love what the show's about. So thank you for inviting me to come on.
Oh no, we were talking about this right before I hit the record. Saying it's dads like yourselves that are not only out in the public light, that are just like moving, that are creating, that are building. To have a platform to connect with guys like you and to share these stories about how you still become the dad you want to be is the whole reason this Dadhood's here and building the community. So I'm excited, really genuinely excited for this episode, brother.
Thank you. It's
So,
making me blush.
For the few people, Jeff, that listen, I mean, there's a lot of your friends and stuff that have been on the show and people but for the people that aren't familiar with you, just give a little backstory of what makes Jeff, Jeff.
I'm an ordinary guy who spent a lot of effort and energy to figure out what extra stuff I needed to do to get extraordinary results and spend my life trying to be the best version of myself by making friends and having fun. Serial entrepreneur, started a few companies, sold a few companies, failed a few companies. Today I run a handful of different enterprises. The one most people may know is Everbowl. It's a craft superfood chain. We're coast to coast with 75 stores open, 450 more coming. We primarily serve acai bowls, pitaya bowls, and superfood smoothies and bowls. I have a construction company called We Build, where we build every Everbowl, but we also build any scalable retail or restaurant concept, from Shaquille O'Neal's Big Chickens to Drew Brees' Stretch Zones to Capriotti's and Wing Zone and a whole bunch of brands in between. And then I have the Jeff Fenster Show, which is my show with Entrepreneur, entrepreneur.com. You can get it on their platform or on anywhere, podcast or YouTube, where I interview really successful people and reverse engineer what makes them successful. Because I think success leaves clues, and it's a lifelong journey of mine and mission of mine to basically create that formula for everyone. Because to me, success is very formulaic. And when you understand what pieces need to go and how to implement that formula, success is a matter of when, not if. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And then I try to be a good dad and a good husband and spend as much quality time with the family as I can while I travel and speak on stages.
I love that so much. Speaking about that, I just saw that you're going to be on stage another with Les Brown and some other very successful people. Congrats on that. That's next level, bro.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a lot of time away. It's a big commitment. It was not something I had ever thought I was going to spend a lot of time doing, but the impact that you can make when you have that opportunity to speak to an audience that's captivated and it's priceless. And, as part of the journey I'm on now is to help more people become successful, because I've had the fortune of having incredible mentors around me and people who have helped me figure this out over the last 40 years. And if I can pay it back and give back, and I get so much fulfillment when I see other humans find success, and if I can be a small part of their journey, I want to do it.
That's so cool, dude. I love in your profile too. It says "girl dad" straight up on there. You're like rocking it proud.
Yes, 2 daughters. So
two daughters.
They keep me on my toes.
What ages are they?
My oldest is 18. She's a freshman in college, and my youngest will be 12 in 2 months. So she's 11. She's in 6th grade.
Nice. And you just had said recently there that it's challenging being away so much. Like, how often do you get to take like your family with you when you do these events?
Well, up until this year, almost never. And, my oldest was a senior in high school playing competitive sports. My youngest was in 5th grade. This is the first year we've actually moved my youngest into it's a hybrid school program, because she travels and does a lot of horse shows competitively. So she needs the flexibility of scheduling. And as a byproduct and benefit, because there's flexibility now in where she has to be for school, I can take her and my wife with me, and my oldest, she's at college. So this year I get to bring them along a lot more, and that is very, very rewarding for me. Makes it way more likely I'm going to say yes to more stuff, which is probably why you see on my social all these events that I'm going to.
For sure. No, that's so great. I'm glad that they get to see that, because there's so much time. I mean, it's like everybody else that gets to witness your growth and all you're doing. All they're seeing is the highlight reel. They're not seeing.
And they don't want that.
Right?
They don't want that though. They want the quality time. They want to be with you. They want to physically be in the same environment with you. They care less about, the things that mean zero. I'm not cool. I'm dad,
For sure. For sure. So it's very interesting because you do help these companies and you help these brands like scale very quickly. And you said, you develop the process, you can implement the process, and it's just a matter of time. How do you think that correlates though with being a dad and raising kids?
I think it correlates one to one. And you look at the negatives that people impart on their children. Like if you're a smoker, your child is more likely to smoke. If you're a drinker, your child is more likely to drink. If you're abusive to your spouse, your child is more likely to be in a relationship that is similar. And all those statistics come out. But what we also don't talk about is if you're successful, your child's more likely to be successful. If you go to college, your child's more likely to go to college. If you hold yourself accountable to be in shape and be the best version of you, you are instilling that in your child, because your child doesn't listen to the words you say. Anyone who's a parent will attest. They'll roll their eyes and not they think they know better than you, but what they see, what they actually absorb is what they see you do. Your habits, your behaviors, what you do when no one's looking, what you do when you're not thinking about it. That's why they follow you if you smoke or if you drink or if you're abusive or if you go to college or if you're in shape or if you're successful. And so for me, it's about being the best version of myself and being extraordinary in everything I do and chasing remarkability. And so I want them to see that. I want them to understand, like, as much as I want to be home for every soccer game and every dance recital and every single life event, I also want them to understand that I'm an adult in my own world and I'm pursuing my bigger goals for myself as well as the family. And I'm going after it with that same level of commitment, dedication, and remarkability that I want them to do in their stuff. And just like they can't come to all my events, I can't be there for all theirs. It doesn't mean I don't love them. It doesn't mean I don't want to be. But those are the sacrifices we have to make. And to some people, they're like, I will not miss one of my child's events. And I respect that. If there was a world where I could do that, I would, because I love it. But at the same time, I'm also trying to teach them to be incredible adults. And I think the job as a parent is not just to be your kid's friend and to be physically there at all those events, because the truth is those are selfish for you more than it is for them. I mean, I've learned with having an 18-year-old and now an almost 11-year-old, from 0 to 7, they don't remember 99% of all those things that we did. It shaped them. It was important. I got the benefit, right? That was great for me and my wife. Like, we got to experience our kid at the zoo at 3 years old, seeing an animal, their face light up. Like, I'll never forget it. They don't remember it. But my main job is to make them very successful adults. Pass that on, right? And so the way I do that is by being the example. And that means that I honor my commitments. If I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm there. If there's a way for me to grow my business, myself, my family, I'm going to do it. And I recognize that I would rather have less quantity of time and more quality of time. And I want to create an environment of abundance. So I can be a backbone for them, both financially as well as emotionally, and as well as showing them what it takes to be successful in this world. It's not easy. It's a very competitive environment, and you have to work hard. And that's something that you can talk about all you want, but they're going to see if you actually do it. And so I do my very best to showcase it. So that's kind of what it's about.
Dude, I love this message so much, because I get both sides. There's a lot of guests that's their whole thing. They're like, I'm going to be at every event. I'm going to do everything. And to actually hear that flip side, the way that you just expressed that, like, I'm not going to be able to make it to everything because I'm creating something that's also benefiting them. Mm-hmm. Contrary to what other people say, like, your hard work and efforts, and when you're gone, is creating a foundation that's also benefiting generations to come, which is, really...
My very first company, I had quit a job that I was making 6 figures after law school. I didn't use my law degree. I had a kid in law school. I went to law school to be a sports agent, quit the job in sports agency, got a job selling payroll, made 6 figures, bought my first house, moved my fiance and daughter into it, got into a fight with my employer over a bonus and having to wait for a fiscal year. And being 24, I just had a big ego. I went home and I said to my fiance, I want to quit my job, sell the house and move in with my parents and start my first company and start my own payroll company. And my dad pulled me aside and he goes, Jeff, you don't have the privilege to be selfish. You're a dad now. You have to keep the job. You have to take care of them financially, and you have to stick with that. You don't get to go chase these dreams anymore. And I heard what he said. And I think a lot of people immediately go, yeah, he's right. I disagree with 100% of my fiber and being. I'm a dad now. I have to show my kids that you always have to chase your dreams. You always have to pursue what makes you happy and fulfills you and brings you enjoyment, and never settle, regardless if you're a parent. And so I'm going to show my child, because what am I going to teach them? If I did that and I'm still at that company and I'm telling them, hey, honey, chase your dreams and go be everything you want, But look at me, I didn't do those things. No, I had to demonstrate it by taking that example. So we sold our house. We moved in with my parents for almost 2 years. We sacrificed to get to a point where we could then buy a new house and be in a new position. And now I've demonstrated to my child at the time, one, that no, you go get what you want. You never settle, because that's something that I want to teach my kids. So again, two sides of the same coin, heads and tails. It's perspective, but if you really want to instill something in your children and that means more to you than creature comforts and having your own house and, stability, I'd rather my daughter see like, no, my dad went for it. And whether he's successful or he's not, he went for it, and I'm going to do the same thing. And that's what I want my kid to do. The results are relevant. It's the journey, right? It's the process.
Yeah. Because it's not the what, right? It's the how we do it.
Right. That's right. And so now she knows, like, she went to college. She goes to college in Mississippi. We're from California. We know nobody in Mississippi, but that wasn't a daunting task for her because she's seen me take on these challenges that I had no experience doing, or expanding my social circle and my comfort zone. And I don't live in comfort, and neither does she. And I'm seeing her prosper. I'm seeing her shine in a way that, fills me up beyond belief. And I have to believe that part of that confidence that she has is because she saw how we didn't settle. We don't settle in our house. We don't say the word can't. That's the only 4-letter word you're not allowed to say is I can't. You can drop any other swear word you want. Just don't say can't.
Right? No, that's so good. Dude, I want to hit back on that for a second. You said your dad came to you with this advice, right? And it's very challenging as men, because I feel like, especially for myself, you look up to your dad in a certain way, right? And when your dad says that advice, you have to either A, take it, or B, realize this is your journey now and you're going to stand on it and you're going to move forward, right? So was it tempting though at a time? Was that a struggle back and forth, or were you just like bent on it and you're like, I'm going for my thing?
No, I was bent on it. I mean, he'd given me a similar speech when I graduated law school and quit the job as a sports agent, and then decided not to be a lawyer even though I have a JD, because I also still had a kid. And he's like, you just took out 6 figures in law school loans to get this degree, and now you're going to go sell payroll for $38,000 base pay plus commission. And I said, yeah, I am. And I did that, made good money doing it. I was able to make 6 figures selling, learn some skills. And so it was the second time he said it to me about my child, but it was like, Dad, you're not hearing me. Like he was a more conservative track. He was a doctor for 30 years for Kaiser. My mom was a teacher. Like there was no entrepreneurship influence in my family. The word entrepreneur didn't mean anything to any of us. Like I had never uttered that word at this time. I mean, you had business owners and you had employers, and I was going to go work for somebody. Like that was what I always thought I was going to do, and be a sports agent. And I was all excited about it. But the whole thing for me was, I saw my kid and I was like, I don't want to tell my kid to do one thing and do something else. And I think as parents, we do that way too much. Do your behavior the way you want them to be. Be the person, be the example you want them to be. It's always like, don't do what I do, do what I say. And kids don't operate that way. Like I never liked it. As a child, I always remember, like if my parents said don't do something, but then they were doing it, I wanted to do it even more, right? And I was like, well, you're doing it. Like, why do I have to go to bed? You're staying up late. Well, you have school in the morning. Well, you have work in the morning, but you're staying up late. Or, why do you get to do this and I don't? And yeah, I was a kid, and sometimes you just have to deal with that. And there are instances where I've obviously have done that to my children as well. But for the big stuff, what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, or for a career, or for the next few years, I'm not going to settle. I'm never going to settle. I might swing and miss, and that's okay. I'm okay showing my kid that I fell down on my journey and I learned something and I picked myself back up, because sometimes that's the message they need to see, is that we're not always accurate, right? Like I have failed with companies. I have closed companies that did not work, but I learned from it and I demonstrated something, which is, what you do? One of the things on my show, the Jeff Fenster show, when we talk to successful people and we reverse engineer what has made them successful, what are those habits? What are those things that they innately do? They're non-negotiables. One of the best examples I ever heard was from one of my guests. And the answer was, they get up, they get back up. And it's amazing with that perseverance, what is on the other side of that and what kind of success you can command in your life by continuously getting back up. We all get knocked down, whether it's COVID, whether it's, big black swan event like COVID, or the 2008 financial crisis, whether it's a divorce, whether it's a death in the family, whether it's a crook inside your organization who steals money, whether it's a vendor who went out, or a customer who screwed you, or a partner who backstabbed you, or just it just didn't work. Like there's a litany of examples of why things don't end up working. The key is to get back up, right? And so I could stay at the job that I didn't love and bite my hands and make good money. And yeah, we would have had a nice quality of life. And I would have said, honey, I don't love what I do. And she'd hear me talk about it. I wouldn't have passion. Oh, what does your dad do? Oh, he sells payroll for ADP. Like, that's fine. It's a good career. It just wasn't for me. And so now when I talk about what I do and she's there, or either my daughters are there, they feel the passion because I'm passionate about what I do and it lights me up. And so they're seeing like, wow, you can love what you do in this world. You can go chase those big audacious goals. You can fall down along the way, just continuously get back up and keep going. And those are the lessons that I think everyone has to define what they want for their children. And once you define them, you need to live the example that you're trying to set.
Yeah, I'm constantly asking that question, like, what's the father you want to be, right? Because we don't ask that question a lot. It's just, well, I show up, I go to their games, and I pay for a roof over their head, I get them to school and stuff. It's like, yeah, but is that the father that you want to be? Is that the father you want to show up as, right?
Like, I'm glad you say that because I've gone to a lot of their events. I go to as many as I can. I go for me. I don't go for them. And a lot of parents, I think, feel guilty that they're going for them because they want you to be there. Of course, your children want you to be there. My child wants me to be at everything. My youngest wants me to stand there where she brushes her teeth. I'm not going to do that. I got other things to do. She can brush her teeth. She also has to be an independent woman. I want my daughters to be independent. I want them to be confident without me there or my wife there. I want them to feel that they are self-sufficient in what they're able to do. I show up for me because I get to enjoy watching my daughter shine in whatever she's doing or enjoy and have a bunch of fun. But sometimes fun and other things, they coincide, and I have other obligations. I am financially responsible to take care of us and go hunt, right? And hunting for me is making money. But that's what I'm responsible for. That's my job. And I don't have the privilege. I mean, sure, could I'm in a financial position where I could quit everything I'm doing and just hang out? Yes. But that's not fulfilling of a life for me. So what kind of a person for them am I going to be if I'm unfulfilled, right? You have to take care of yourself first. It's like when you're on the airplane and they say when the oxygen masks fall down, put yours on first before you help somebody else, because the instinct is to help the kid first. But if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't be there to take care of them, which means you have to take care of your health, primary number one. So I'm going to carve out time for me to be in shape and work out and exercise, because if I'm not healthy, I can't be a good dad to them. I have to be fulfilled emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and all those different other things. Because again, if I'm depressed or I'm not happy, how am I going to be a good dad or a good spouse or a good friend or a good leader, right? I'm not. And so I think you have to be selfish to be selfless as a parent, and teaching them to do that, because when they're parents one day, I want them to do the same thing. I think that's the best way to grow really successful children, or instill the attributes in children so they can grow up to be really successful. And I say success, I don't just mean financial. Success is whatever you want. Success could be, I want to be a stay-at-home parent. That's great. Create an environment that allows you to do that. Success might be you want to be an artist and you want to paint incredible pictures. That's amazing. Like whatever it is, pick it. But how you get there and what drives you to do that is the critical component.
Dude, absolutely. One thing you were talking about is you've had opportunities or started up things and they've failed. So when your daughters come to you one day, if they decide to be entrepreneurs or whatever they're doing, and they're like, hey, Dad, I feel like this isn't for me, or I think I've hit the end. But then they've also heard the message in society that like, you got to keep getting back up and never give up, never give up. Like, how do you explain that balance to them?
I think we're mixing them, right? So never quit and don't give up doesn't mean don't change your path. It just means don't stop your journey, right? So I don't think entrepreneurship is for everybody. I don't actually want either of my daughters to be an entrepreneur, if you give me my preference, just because the work-life balance is exceptionally hard to manage. And it's a simpler, easier life if you can find fulfillment and enjoyment in a non-entrepreneurial journey. That being said, regardless of what it is, one of them wants to go to medical school, they finish medical school, they start being a doctor, and then 6 months in, they say, hey, Dad, this isn't for me. Good. Change. Like it doesn't matter. Like I have a law degree. I've practiced law 0 days of my career. 0. I mean, I was an intern in my third year of law school, so I did a little bit, but 0 year, 0 days. Doesn't mean I didn't learn from it. Doesn't mean I didn't get stuff from it. It doesn't mean I didn't understand that for that part, that season of my life, that's what I was striving to do. And the world's changed. One of my core values, one of my success principles is change ready. And that means that you have to be ready to pivot, adapt, and change. And sometimes the world says, hey, it's time to do something different. Or maybe you're just life tells you it's time to do something different, or an opportunity presents itself, and I'll be there to support them, right? As long as they give their best and they strive to be remarkable at everything they do. That's all I ask them to do. I don't want them to try their best. I want them to be their best. And what that means is whatever your best is today is what you should be. So if you've never ridden a bicycle, but you get out there and you get on it with confidence and you try and you fall down, hey, you did your best today. That's amazing, right? We'll Kaizen our way. We'll get 1% better every day till we get to the level that we want to be, which is another one of my success principles and core values. But that's what I want them to do. And I mean, my first podcast sucked. My first time on stage sucked. My first company sucked. My first time doing everything sucks. You're not good until you're good, right? But I still go with it with the best intention I can. And even if I embarrass myself, I'm not upset if I give the absolute best effort I can give today with the capabilities I have in the moment. And as long as I wake up tomorrow with the goal of getting a little bit better and continuing to strive to do it. So when you say don't give up, it's like, well, maybe you give up the job or you give up the company or you give up that mission because you found a different fork in the road and now it's time to pivot to this or adjust to this. But take that same passion, that same level of commitment and dedication into that next step on that journey, you know?
Absolutely. And I love that your daughters are able to just watch you doing that kind of stuff, because it's important for our kids to see us not succeed at everything, right? I think if they did only see us succeed, like they only got the Instagram version of us as dads, then they would just have this like false reality of what life is going to hand them along their journey, right?
No, I mean, it's correct. And I also don't want them to feel like, oh, you know, if they only see your highlights and you shelter them from your failures or your mistakes, then they have this perspective that mom and dad are perfect and I'm not. And so I'm not as good as they are, or what's wrong with me. And I just don't know why you do that. Like being vulnerable and not being good is actually where the best growth happens, right?
Yeah.
Like when I'm really polished at something, it's less authentic. I'm polished. It's like I'm going through the motions because I've gotten to that level, right? Versus the amount of effort it takes to get good at something or to get better at something or to try something new. Speaking on a stage when you have stage fright, you know, getting in front of your classroom and speaking when you're scared to, asking a boy or girl out on a date, right? Whatever that is, like having the confidence to try and knowing that they might say no, and trying to dance when you don't know how, or sing when you don't know how, right? Or any of those things that seem fun, but applying for a job and going through a job interview, asking for an opportunity, saying yes to opportunities. Like those are all skills. Those are all learned skills that we have to learn. And as parents, I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that, again, they're watching you. They're not hearing you. They're really not. I tell my kids do something, I can tell them 1,000 times, but it's amazing what they see and experience from just my behavior. And they'll call me out because they know that I'm a big believer in these ideals. And so when I don't live up to that, they're the first one to call me out. And I'm not perfect. I have my days where I'm definitely not remarkable at the things I should be, and I should be called out. You know, it's always fun when your 11-year-old calls you out, but it happens.
Hey, my 9-year-old calls me out all the time, man. It's just like, okay.
Yep.
But I mean, they're seeing you from a different light too. I mean, they get to see the good, the bad, the ugly, right? They're seeing it all the time. So they have a very different perspective than how others might perceive you.
That's right. That's right.
So Jeff, tell me about like the difference now, or something that you know now, having your daughters at the ages that they're at, that you wish you would have known coming into being a new dad.
Oh my gosh, the list is so long. I guess if I had to give you one, especially, well, I have girls. I'm a boy. So I didn't appreciate the level of emotion and how a girl may view the same set of circumstances that a little boy might view it. There's a lot more. Embarrassed is more of a thing for them than it would be for a little boy, or at least for me when I was a little boy. And maybe I shouldn't be so gender specific. My experience as a little boy was very different than the experience of having little daughters. I guess I would say that I would be much more cognizant of feelings over actions. So how you say something to a little girl versus how you may say it to a little boy may be different, how they interpret it. And they feel your energy more than they feel that they did something wrong. So if I yelled at one of my kids when they were young, they'd break down and cry, versus when I was yelled at as a kid, it didn't bother me. If you grounded me, it bothered me. right? Like, you can yell at me all day, just don't take away my Nintendo or don't let me go outside and play with friends. With my daughters, it was like, whoa, you got to be more cognizant of the fact that you're their dad. And there's this weird thing about girls end up marrying guys that are similar to their father. There's like a bunch of books and literature that people have shared with me over the years, and I don't know if it's true because neither of my kids are married, but how you act in that manner is so important. And so I think when I was a young dad, I was trying to mask my not knowing what I was doing by overdoing versus letting them have a little bit more freedom and showing them instead of doing it for them. Right. And that's where I've come up with this be the example situation, because at my earliest phase of parenthood, I was holding this little baby. I didn't know what I was doing, and it's scary. It's scary. So
It is. Dude, I love that you shared that too, because I'm very curious of now knowing that and going through that with your daughters and understanding that the way you make someone feel by the things that you said, like how that's benefited you though now in the business or the entrepreneurial world, right?
I'm much more patient. I'm much more patient. They've taught me patience, humility. I'm much more cognizant of the tone of my voice than the words I use, right? Because tonality seems to be much more important with children than the words, and praising as well. I don't naturally focus too much on praise. It's just not like, I don't need people to tell me I did a good job. I don't need participation trophies. The results speak for themselves, and I enjoy the process more. But with kids, it's important, and so I also learned how to help them along that version, be there to support them, because we all think differently. Like, I think the way I think, you think the way you think. Neither one's better or worse. It's just who we are. And so I took for granted, now that I had a kid, that they don't see the world the way I do. Their brain doesn't process things the same way mine does. They're either more advanced or they're less advanced. And I also learned that when my daughters turned about 9, they both became more mature than me. So that's always fun too.
Don't you love how humbling kids are?
Yes. Yes.
So you've had that experience. You've watched your kids develop and grow to the stage that they're at now. What are you hoping? And hope is a interesting word, right? Because it's like we put a lot of effort in, so which we try to eliminate hope with through the effort and the hard work. But seeing your daughters moving forward in college and high school and these stages of their lives, like, what is the one thing that you hope, there's that word again, that they take away from your actions, your behaviors, or just a lesson that you've taught them that you're just like, that's the thing that's like, if they get this right, like, I feel like I've done my job as a dad?
I want them to live up to their potential. I want them to be the best version of themselves, and whatever that is. It doesn't mean that we're not, as I said at the very beginning of this episode with you, I'm an ordinary guy. I don't have incredible intellect. I'm 5'9", so I'm average height. I don't hit baseballs out of Yankee Stadium. I don't act on the big screen. I don't have and run Facebook, and I'm not sending people to Mars like Elon Musk. So I don't need to do those things. I need to be the best version of Jeff. And if my 2 daughters can be the best that they end up being based on their natural abilities and all that, coupled with finding the enjoyment of life. I think life is too short not to have fun every day. That's my 2 main rules in life: are make friends and have fun. And if they can go through life making friends, having fun, and being the best version of themselves at everything they do, then that's my hope for them. Just like, if a genie popped up and I could create that, that's what I would create for them. I don't care about their wealth or where they, like, I want whatever they want enjoyment wise. Like, that's what I want. And so that would be my hope. But I have, like you said, I have learned a long time ago that hope isn't a strategy, unfortunately.
Right. No, for sure. That's so good. I have these dad decks here. So I created this deck because I feel like conversations become very stagnant sometimes, especially with men. We get in a loop where we're just like, hey, bro, like, what about your team, or what's, weather, or talking, just high level stuff. How's work going? How's the business? And so I wanted to get a little deeper and created these cards. So I'm just going to spread them out. You tell me when to stop. All right, Jeff. So what's your favorite game to play with your daughters?
Ooh. Well, they've changed over time.
Sure.
I love Monopoly. So Monopoly is selfishly it's one of my favorite games. Um, I also really liked when they were younger. They would ride me, and I would basically be the horse, and they would ride on. I'd be on crawling around the house, and they'd be on my back. I loved that. That was one of my favorite games.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Dude, how often do you reflect back or just have moments where you're like, man, I wish they were three again just for a day, or if they were, small again for a little bit, or do you even think about stuff like that?
You know, this might sound a little cold on my side. I really don't miss those days.
Hmm.
I love the relationship I have with them as more mature, grown up. Well, my 18-year-old, she's a grown up now, but my young one seems like she's 18 too. I love that relationship. I love the dialogue, the conversation, the stuff. Like I said, that 0 to 7, that's more for you. Did I enjoy it? Yeah, I don't. I'll do it again as a grandparent, but I don't. I don't need to go back to that. There's not enough mutual fulfillment. They're not tackling their own challenges. They're not, going through life as a real character. Like I was jokingly telling my wife when we dropped our oldest off at college, I said to her, what are you most excited about? And what I was most excited about for her was we spent 18 years building this human to be in the world. And now we get to go see how she does, right? Like we get to see the result of this thing that we've been working on in R&D for 18 years and shaping and molding and struggling and pushing and loving and caring and all these things. And now she has the freedom to make her own decisions. And we get to sit back and hope she makes the right ones, but that's up to her. She's driving her own car now, and I get to see it, and I'm excited about that. And maybe that's the entrepreneur builder in me, that I'm just excited to see this kid go take on the world and whatnot. But I don't really look back. Like my wife, she's like, I want to bundle them back up into little babies. I wasn't fulfilled from that. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't trade it for anything, but I don't need to go back. Like I really like. You can give me 9 years old on. I would love. Yes, I love it. Love, love, love. I mean, I would have 20 kids if they all came at 9.
Right? Dude, I'm with you. I'm with you, bro. Because it's like, yeah, the baby years. I don't know. They
I'm
were
not
they were
really a
fun.
nurturer. Like I'm
Yeah.
not really great at changing diapers and brushing your teeth and bathing you. And like, I want you to handle your own stuff. And
Yes.
I want to have more of a different kind of relationship, which I don't know if that's all dads. That's just how I was. I felt
Sure.
guilty about it for a while. And then I kind of sunk my teeth into realizing, no, like I think I was there. I was present. I tried, but that's not my bag. Like I'm really better with older kids.
And that's such an important message. And I hope like all the dads listening to this can really reflect. Like, don't look back and reflect and say like, oh, I wish I would have been this. I wish it would have been that. It's like to Jeff's point right there. Like you're the exact dad your kids need you to be. We can always grow, we can always level up, and we can always become better. But that's just putting in those work and understanding from the past those things that didn't work out the way you wanted them to, and hopefully moving forward you correct that behavior on your own end, and just get on with it. I'm really curious, Jeff, with your daughters, because now that you have one in college and the other one's still at home, transitioning or having those messages, because those are very different messages that those two can process. How do you like switch that kind of like back and forth when you're dealing with the two of them? Is it more you're now feeling like you're more in that friend zone with your daughter in college and still happen to be dad zone, or how are you
Um,
doing?
I give my kids a lot of leash. I always did. Like I think I was one of those kids where you could tell me the stove's hot, but I was gonna touch it. I just was. And so I understand those elements and attributes very well because that's who I was as a kid. So I'm not really a helicopter parent at all. If anything, I'm probably too lenient, and I like my kids to learn from experience. So I kind of treat them both more like friends as I'm guiding them. I mean,
Mm.
yes, there's rules in my house, and yes, my daughter, I tell her what to do a lot, and sometimes she does it, sometimes she doesn't.
Yeah.
And there's consequences, obviously, if she doesn't. I mean, we still have a normal household, but I don't really change my narrative or my message. I treat them the same, which is I love them. I want what's best for them. If there's a reason I'm telling you to do something, there's an actual reason, and I hope that they're becoming. And I think they do over time. They start to realize like Dad doesn't make me do many things. So when he's really adamant that I'm doing something, there's generally a good reason. But I don't really change my message the way I talk. Like I talk to them both the same. You know, I give them the freedom to be them and express themselves, and I want to be part of that. But my non-negotiables are my non-negotiables, which is that they have to strive to be the best version of themselves every day. I don't settle for lack of effort.
Mhm.
And definitely when they say I can't, that's what disrupts my equilibrium pretty quick.
I love that. When they,
Fail is okay. You know, choosing not to do something is fine. I don't want to is fine. I
mm,
can't. You can. You just don't want to.
yeah,
Different.
that's, man, so well said. I mean, that's just facts, right? You're just like, yeah. Um, Watching your daughter succeed versus watching yourself succeed in moments, like which one brings you more joy?
Daughter every time.
Mm.
Every time. Not even close.
Yeah.
I hope they 100 million X anything I've ever accomplished, and I want to be there to support and enjoy. Um, my oldest or my youngest will be 18 in 6 years, and I'll probably spend more time just in being part of their camp, you know, and joining their journey on that way. But no, watching them do amazing things is, and I'm sure every parent probably feels the same.
Yeah.
It's probably a universal thing. I mean,
Yeah. And I guess unless there's some people out there that might have a little bit, egomaniacs that they just love it. But yeah, it definitely is rewarding watching your children grow, excel, even when they fail. Like there is
yeah,
a part of me, like my boys are in Taekwondo with me, man, and when I see them in a match and they get beat, there's a little part where I'm like, good on you though, bro. You like stood up, you got in there, you did your thing,
yeah.
So
And I'm with you. Like winning or losing doesn't matter. Like, I really don't care. Like zero. Um, did they do their best? Like honestly, did, and it's cliche, but there's so much power in that. That when they learn like that was the best I could do today. Hey, you finished last, but you killed it, right?
mm,
You killed it. You should finish last. You have no experience. You're new at this. Why should you be good at it? Now, what are you going to do to get better tomorrow? You have a lesson. You have a path now. You understand what better looks like. You saw other people do it better. What can you do to implement some of those things? How are you going to improve? And that's like learning to walk, right? First time a kid tries to walk, they fall. And then they try again, they fall. And keep trying, and eventually they walk, and then they run. And then they jump. And then they're doing all those things kids do. And so it's the same thing. It's just I don't get mad at my kid the first time they fell. I'm just like, hey, they tried. They took a step. Yay. You know, because
yeah.
that's all they could do at that moment. And so I just try to keep it very simple as a parent. Like, how can I encourage them to realize that that's the path, that's the success formula? Like, it's really not that hard. It's so simple that most people overlook it and they fail to remember. Like, if you just go back to what children do best, you put two toddlers or 4-year-olds in a playground, they're going to make friends, they're going to find some enjoyment, they're going to have fun. They're going to learn how to ride a bike, they're going to fall down a bunch, then they'll figure it out. When they learn how to walk, same thing. If you take those same lessons and apply it to your own life, you'll get the same results. And so I'm trying to remind my kids, like, never forget what it's like to be a kid, because kids aren't embarrassed, they're not scared, they make friends, they have fun, and they kaizen their way to a whole bunch of things. And as adults, we tend to, society and parenting combined has taught us like we can't be bad, we can't fail, we can't look bad, we can't do it until we're ready, we need to have all this experience, we can't go talk to strangers. We literally say don't talk to strangers, right? Like we teach our kid. Now there's, I don't want my 6-year-old talking to strange adults, but strange kids, great, right? So not don't talk to strangers, don't talk to strange adults, talk to strangers, right? Don't be shy, like make friends. Like you start to realize like all these lessons that we instill in children early, and you
Yeah.
see the result in the grown up version of them, because
Right.
everybody was a kid once.
It's so true. How many times are we like, don't make a mess.
Mm-hmm.
Don't talk to strange adults. Like
Yeah.
don't do these things. And or strangers, they just say, and then it's like, that's what they know. So we're basically saying, don't attempt anything that you might fail.
Mm-hmm.
Don't go out there and talk to people, where you have mentioned it, and I've seen some of your messages saying building those relationships, friendships, getting in those network groups, doing these things, that's helps you evolve, helps you grow. It's like these lessons that we've told them from day one, it's like we're programming in the wrong way,
And
right?
that's what we're seeing in the adults today that people struggle with as adults, right? So you have a chance to shape your kids, shape them into the person that you think that you should be and they should be. And you do that by starting to live the example. And it can start today. Like, even if you haven't been doing it, again, you have to put your own mask on before you help somebody else. So if you're not being the person you want them to be, I mean, I can save you the brain damage. They're not going to be that person either, right? They're just not. Like, they're going to take a lot from you, whether it's the polar opposite of you because you have that kind of relationship, or it's identical. Either way, it's going to be right there. It's going to be a mirror or the same, but there's going to be a lot of commonalities, right? Because the difference between one side and the other is actually pretty close, right? The difference between midnight or 11 and 1 a.m. is very close.
Mm.
The end of one day and the beginning of another.
That's it. My friends, Dadhood, listen, Jeff has brought so much value on this show. I've been so excited to connect with him, the messages he's brought. Jeff, if there's dads out there that are just really feeling your message and want to connect more with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Obviously, all the social channels at Fenster Jeff. Hit me up, jeff@everbull.com, or connect@jeffenster.com if you want to shoot me an email. Social media is always easy. If you want to follow because you're interested in Success Formula, I highly recommend checking out the show. It's pretty much me talking to really successful people, so it's not going to just be my message over and over again, but you're going to hear about incredible formulas from incredibly successful humans. The Jeff Fenster Show, all platforms and YouTube. And yeah, hit me up. I truly like to make friends, so we're all dads listening to this, or not all, but I'm assuming the majority of listening are dads, and we're in a fraternity of parenthood and the father side, which has its own benefits and challenges. And so if I can be of assistance to anyone, great. Or if there's any information you think I should know, I'd love to hear it.
Awesome, brother. Thank you so much for being on the show, dude.
Thanks for having me.